When narcissists realize you're lost forever, they spiral out of control. Hey there, fellow truth seekers. Thanks for joining me today as we dive deep into the fascinating world of narcissistic behavior and how to navigate it like a pro. When you choose to ignore a narcissist, you're essentially cutting off their lifeblood, their precious narcissistic supply. And trust me, that's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. They'll stop at nothing to regain control and reel you back into their web of manipulation. Now let's break it down a bit. According to our trusty friend Wikipedia, this phenomenon is called psychological reactance. It's like when you try to limit someone's options and they push back even harder. So, when you deny a narcissist their supply, they'll pull out all the stops to try to win you back. That's where the 5 traps come into play: love bombing, cold empathy, guilt, anger, and the persona of transformation. These are their go-to tactics for luring you back into their clutches. And let me tell you, they're darn good at it. But fear not, my friends, for knowledge is power. In this video, we'll explore what happens when you see through their traps and refuse to take the bait. It's like dodging bullets in the Matrix. You'll come out unscathed and more resilient than ever before. So grab your popcorn and settle in, because we're about to unravel the mystery of how to outsmart a narcissist and reclaim your power. Let's do this. So imagine our friend Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer as the narcissist in this scenario. He sees people not as individuals but as happy meals with legs just waiting to satisfy his various needs, whether it's for attention, validation, or whatever else he craves. Now let's talk about his supply. That's the people he's drawing all this stuff from. Spike's got his main squeeze, his primary source of supply. That's the person he's closest to, probably romantically involved with. But one person isn't enough to feed his ego, so he's also got a bunch of secondary sources of supply, let's say 5 of them. These could be friends, acquaintances, people he flirts with, you name it. Now, here's where things get interesting. Most folks assume narcissists are constantly out there, adding new people to their collection of supply. But I don't think that's how it works. Instead of constantly adding new folks, I reckon narcissists are more like jugglers. They've got their set number of balls in the air, and when one drops, they grab a new one to replace it. So if you find yourself caught up with a narcissist, remember, you're not just another happy meal with legs. And if you decide to walk away, chances are they'll just find someone else to take your spot in their little circus act. But hey, at least you'll be free from their manipulative games, right? Now, when the primary supply drops off for a narcissist, it's like their main buffet shutting down. Secondary sources are like snacks. You can grab them easily, but they won't fill you up like a proper meal. Losing the primary source is a big blow to the narcissist's ego because that's where they get their biggest emotional boost. So let's break down how a narcissist spirals when their primary source bails. First off, they try to promote one of their secondary sources to the main spot. But here's the kicker. Secondary sources aren't really built for that role. They're more like backup dancers than headliners. They're the folks you chat with at parties or follow on social media, not the ones you spill your guts to. Now this got me thinking. In my last video on narcissism, I said something pretty bold, that most folks don't realize they're dealing with a narcissist until after they've escaped the mess. But here's the thing, that was assuming we were talking about primary sources of supply. Secondary sources might not even know they're in the running for the top spot. So trying to fill that primary role with a secondary source, it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't work. So here's where the rubber meets the road for a narcissist, the choices they have to make. Picture Spike again. He's lost his main squeeze, failed to fill the void with backup options, and now he's got 2 paths ahead. Option 1, he can scout for a brand new primary source of supply. Option 2, he can try to reel back in the old primary source using the Hoover method from the narcissistic abuse playbook. But here's the twist. In my digging for this video, I stumbled upon something that's not getting much airtime. See, a narcissist isn't just looking for any old Joe to fill that primary supply slot. They've got a very specific type in mind. So, let's play a little game and sketch out the perfect primary supply for a narcissist. Generally speaking, there are after 6 key traits. First up, they need someone with a high tolerance for flattery, someone who's willing to stroke the narcissist's ego on the regular. Then, they're on the hunt for a person who's a bit on the submissive side, someone who won't rock the boat or challenge their authority. Let's talk about status and prestige. Narcissists are all about boosting their own image and social standing, so they're on the lookout for partners who can up their game in that department. Think beauty, social status, wealth, career success. These are all traits that make someone a hot commodity for a narcissist. Then there's the sacrifice factor. They want someone who's willing to put their needs on the back burner and prioritize the narcissist's desires above their own. This kind of selflessness is like catnip for narcissists, feeding their ego like nobody's business. Next up, empathy. Narcissists love to prey on people who have big hearts and a natural inclination towards caregiving. These folks are easy targets for manipulation because they're always seeing the best in others and putting others' needs before their own. Then there's resilience to abuse. It might sound twisted, but narcissists are drawn to people who can withstand emotional abuse without batting an eyelash. This kind of resilience lets the narcissist keep up their toxic behavior without facing any consequences, ensuring a steady stream of narcissistic gratification. So, back to our buddy Spike. He's realizing it's no walk in the park finding a replacement for his main squeeze. Eventually, he decides to circle back to his old flame, and that's where stage 3 kicks in, the traps. See, when control freaks like Spike lose their grip, they'll pull out all the stops to regain control. It's like playing the original Mario game. Remember the one with the 8-bit graphics? As you try to reach the end of the level, they're throwing obstacles your way left and right, just like those pesky piranha plants popping out of pipes. If one trap fails, no worries, there's always another one waiting around the corner. Avoiding a narcissist's traps isn't as easy as just giving them the silent treatment. Nope, that usually just makes them more determined to reel you back in. So let's zip through these 5 traps real quick. First up, there's the love bombing trap, where they shower you with affection. Then there's the cold empathy trap, guilt tripping, anger outbursts, and the I've changed persona. But remember, the aim of all these traps is to make you their main source of supply again. But let's say you dodge all those traps and make it to the finish line. You think you've won, right? Not so fast. There's still the final showdown looming ahead, the meltdown. And that's where stage 4 kicks in. After failing to find other sources of supply and trying every trick in the book to win you back, the narcissist faces their worst nightmare, being exposed and losing control of the narrative. Now, this stage is all about watching their desperation hit new heights. Our pal Spike is pulling out all the stops, resorting to desperate and sometimes self-destructive measures to salvage their reputation and regain control. Then there's the public outbursts, when they can't keep up their act any longer and their true colors start to show. Think social media rants, public fights, maybe even legal battles, all of which can damage their social and professional ties. As Spike's downward spiral unfolds, it often leads to a fallout in their social and professional circles. Friends, family, and colleagues start distancing themselves after witnessing the narcissist's erratic behavior, which only adds to their isolation. Ironically, this puts their secondary sources of supply at risk. See, many of these secondary sources might not even realize they're playing second fiddle to the narcissist. They might just see them as super self-centered. But as the spiral deepens, they start catching on. They see the cracks in the narcissist's facade, exposing their manipulative tactics to the world. Then comes a potential moment of reckoning for Spike. Facing the fallout from their actions, they might hit rock bottom and have a bit of a soul-searching moment. But real change, that's rare without professional help. Narcissistic personality disorder runs deep, and it takes serious work to even begin to shift their behavior. Sometimes they might try to clean up their act or tweak their manipulative tactics, but it's often just a temporary fix as they scramble to regain control or find new sources of supply. But here's the big question. Can narcissists really change? Well, in theory, yes. Narcissistic behaviors are often coping mechanisms developed in response to trauma, usually rooted in childhood experiences. So in theory, those behaviors can be unlearned. But here's the kicker: there's just not enough research out there on it. We've got studies on other personality disorders like NPD showing remission rates, but not much on narcissism. And that's a real gap in our understanding. Until we have more answers, the best move when you see a narcissist spiraling: steer clear. It's the safest bet for your own well-being.